Do you have a Masters hangover? I do. But you know what? We got to get ready for the RBC Heritage. We're at Harbor Town, Hilton Head Island. Let's go. It's the DFS Army 555 podcast. What up, everybody? It's your boy DFS up north here with another 555 PGA podcast brought to you by my friends at DFS Army. I give you my 5 favorite plays, my 5 favorite punts, and 5 key stats for the week. And this week we are talking about the RBC Heritage at Harbortown Golf Links out in Hilton Head, South Carolina. I'm excited. It's another elevated event, which means we get 69 players in the field. No cut. And we are coming off pretty good little Masters, right? How about my boy Scotty? I said it on here last week that if Scotty has his A game, he wins by 5. Look what happens. I don't even think he had his A game last week. His iron play was pretty poor, especially on Saturday. So Scotty gets her done by what, 4 with his B minus, B plus game somewhere in there. Pretty impressive stuff we are seeing from Scotty. It is Tiger Woods-esque. It is not Tiger Woods. Tiger Woods did this for 10 to 12 years in a row. All right. But Scotty is on a very, very impressive run. And we get some interesting, what are we going to do with Scotty this week? So we're going to talk about that here in a second. Let's get to it. Like I said, it is the 555 PGA podcast, the RBC Heritage, right? 555 model as I tell you my 5 key stats or narratives for the week, things to watch for at each specific course. 5 favorite plays on DK or FD, and my 5 favorite low-owned GPP punts. If you are not a DFS Army, I do talk about some of these DFS Army tools. You can become a DFS Army VIP by using the code up north, which gets you 10% off for life, baby. Let's get to the 5 key stats, right? We talked about it. This is an elevated event. We get the top, the Aon, I don't even know how this thing works anymore. Aon next 10, the next 5, 69 guys in the field. Really, really strong. I was going through writing my notes yesterday and today and thinking, man, there are not a lot of players this week that aren't viable, right? Everybody is viable here. This is a very unique course, though, and we'll get into that here in a second. But elevated event, small field, how do we attack it? I think one of the best ways to attack it this week is to go underweight on Scotty Scheffler. I know I just talked about it, but we finally get Scotty priced up to a point where you have to make a decision. And his points per dollar, I don't know that it necessarily makes sense at 13.3 on DraftKings. He's too expensive in a strong field like this. If we're talking about the Valero Texas Open, sure. But in a field like this where you can get guys like Rory, Xander, Patrick Cantlay, all for $2,000 or more, less than that, it's the math just doesn't add up for me. So for me this week, Scotty is going to be a no-go, even though he's done well here in the past. Biggest thing, I talked about how this is a unique test of golf. The biggest thing here is the small greens. We're talking about 3,700 square feet, the smallest on tour. And because of that, we see greens regulation is going to go down. I think there's still a reason to attack guys who are good ball strikers, because good ball strikers, it doesn't matter the size of the green. They're going to put the ball where they want it. But you can give a little bit more credence to strokes gained around the green here, because you're just not going to hit as many greens. So who's good around the greens? We'll talk about that here in a second. One thing that I always like to look at, this is a DFS Army specific tool. We have strong field rank percentage, meaning it shows you what percentage of the field in these strong field events that players beat, and then also no cut field rank. So how do these players how do they perform in no cut events? And you got your standard Scotties and Rorys and Will Zalatoris is up there, but the guy that kind of popped for me in that 60-60 range, meaning that he beats about 60% of the field in each of these, is Kurt Kitayama. I thought he played well last week. I'm intrigued by Kurt Kitayama this week. I think that he could be a low-owned GPP punt. I don't have him listed here, but I'm telling you right now, don't sleep on your boy Kitayama. All right. And then, like I said, strokes gained around the green. You're not going to hit a lot of greens here. You're going to have to get up and down. So the guys that are not named Scotty that are at the top are Mackenzie Hughes and Harris English. Both really, really good around the greens. I looked at, I think when I pulled this stat, it was last 25 rounds. So we're talking last 6-ish tournaments. pretty much in this season. Yeah, I'm high on fairly high on both of them. It is interesting though. English, good history here. Mackenzie Hughes, not, and potentially that's because Hughes, just he relies so much on the putter. Putting doesn't necessarily matter as much this week, but it just because of the small greens, you don't have those long putts, you don't have to lag. But I will say Mackenzie Hughes' ball striking this year has been exponentially better than any other time in his career. So I think that he could have a week this week. The other thing I want to talk about with the course is this is a Pete Dye course, so you could go down that angle. You know, the Siwoo Kims, guys who have had a lot of success at Pete Dye courses in the past. I love Dye. I love what he does with the sight lines. I love what he makes, how he makes you think your way around the course. And you know, what I love the most about this course is that people hated it. They hated it in the 80s when it came out. The tour came here and they just absolutely tore it apart. He's made some slight changes, but it's pretty much the same course. And now it's one of the most beloved courses on tour that we come back to every single year and is getting elevated event status, which I always think is an interesting stat. Another thing that another maybe angle that you could dive down if you really wanted to is who plays well on these like seaside courses. Obviously, the wind is going to be a factor this week again. Probably not as much as last week, but guys typically on these coastal type courses do tend to play better. So my favorite play this week is Rory McIlroy at $2,100 cheaper on DraftKings than Scotty Scheffler. Rory has been good. He's not been great. His game is getting better, and I do think that this is a course that he can have a bunch of success at. And the narrative of him going to live, which he squashed today, all of that I think is going to work towards his ownership being lower. I can see people going Scotty and then Xander, right? Because Xander played really well at the Masters, and then Cantlay, right? So we're going to get maybe Rory 4th or even 5th highest owned above 10K. Like, I'm going to take that all day. All right. Love Rory this week. I think that he's a huge leverage piece. I'm not seeing anybody betting him. Like I said, I think this is a big leverage piece in GPP, especially if you're building lots of lineups. Now, if you're building a single entry, smaller, like we're talking 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 entrants, I would go probably Xander, who's my next guy on this list. But anything, bigger, those bigger three maxes, things like that, I love the leverage that we're going to get on Rory here. Oh, and that brings me to Xander. Core play for us last week. We were all over him. Love him here again. Has had some pretty good success here. His game is in good shape. He is knocking on the door at 10-8. I'm starting my cash lineups there. Love him this week. Matt Fitzpatrick, defending champion. All right. Here's the thing about Fitz. He's been vacationing at Hilton Head for his entire life, right? So he's played this course a million times. He can play this course blindfolded, right? Winner here last year. Right now, he's relying a little too much on his putter. All right. The short game is being relied on too much. He's talked about how he's not getting as much spin on his irons. So I have some concerns there, but I think his ownership, even as the defending champion, is going to be too low. That the maybe question marks to go with the $9,600 price point. I think that he could be a sneaky leverage play. Finau is the same price as he was last week. Really struggled at Augusta. Really struggled on the weekend, but I love Tony at less than driver courses. He is almost always going to be a core play for me at a less than driver course. His history at Colonial goes to show like what a great play he is at these types of courses. And I think that he can have a nice week at potentially a little bit lower ownership. And then finally, Christian Bezuidenhout, 3 straight top 30 finishes here. He's coming off a couple of top 25s. Usually, I'd have a guy who's a little bit higher priced here, but I love Bez that much this week. I think he top 10s easily. All right. So those are my 5 favorite plays. If we go to my favorite punts, we are starting it off with a guy that was a core play for me last week that paid off with a 20th place finish at Augusta, and that is Taylor Moore. Taylor Moore has had a ton of success on these coastal courses as well. Really like him again this week. His game's in good shape. I'm not convinced that he has the upside to win in a field like this, but I think that at 7,400, you don't need him to. Easy top 20 finish, gets it done. All right. Harris English, sneaky good recently, and now we are getting back into we're back over in the southeast here. That's his home ground, Georgia area, right? Like, I love English this week. Good history here. 7,500 is a nice price. Matthew Pavon, we saw him win on the West Coast earlier this year, but came out 11th place finish at Augusta last week, 7,000. He's not priced up enough. He's a top 30 player in the world, in my opinion, right now. So I love Pavon this week. I think he's a great pivot off of a guy who's going to be fairly chalky, who's the next on this list, and that is Cam Davis. Great history here, back-to-back top 10s, coming off his best ever performance in a major. I would expect him to be fairly high owned, but you know what? You don't need to get funky in every single spot. So play yourself some Cam Davis. If you really want to get funky, though, the guy to go to is Sung Jae Im. My boy Sung Jae, great history here. Current form's trash, right? So what are you going to do? Are you going to bank on that history? I will say he looked a little bit better last week. His game's starting to maybe come around a little bit, but it is the ultimate boom or bust play in DFS this week. I think as a guy like Sung Jae Im, he's, for his history here, he's way too cheap. I think, we see the old Sung Jae back, ball striking it around, making birdies, and he'll be a good punt this week, in my opinion. So that's what we've got for you at DFS Army this week. I will have my cheat sheets up. We do cheat sheets for 4-day showdown, every single showdown, tiers, all that jazz. So make sure that if you are not a DFS Army VIP, you can use that code up north. That gets you 10% off of VIP monthly membership. Get involved, get access to everything. Here's what I love is the props, baby. Pick six, prize picks, all of that jazz, right? They are crushing. Sleeper's been great. Bunch of guys that we have, Sniper, Will, they've been absolutely smashing. So if you want to get involved, again, use that code up north. If you don't know how to find it, dfsarmy.com. You can reach me on Twitter at DFS Up North. I can point you in the right direction. Have a great week, everybody. Cheers.